Hello, friends. It's me, Dustin Coyle. Coming at you live again, 9:38 in the morning. Here on Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, you're tuned in to Intelligent Thoughts. That's the overall program, and this show particularly is called the NBA Today for the aforementioned Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. We're going to talk about Dame Lillard. Everybody already knows what happened. It's probably the biggest thing that's happened in the playoffs so far this year. Everybody and their uncle talking about that shit. We're going to talk about Russell Westbrook, Paul George, a little bit, coming off of their Game 5 in Portland last night. We'll obviously break that one down. We're going to talk about the Raptors. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers a little bit, Joel Embiid, and the rest of the crew. A lot of our second-round matchups are already set up. We're going to get to that. Obviously, some stuff happened last night. Everybody probably knows, but we're going to recap that here in just a second. Before we start the show, I would like to tell everybody to go subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts from or wherever you could do it. I don't really care either way. And go ahead and like the show page on Facebook at Intelligent Thoughts. On Instagram at Intelligent B Thoughts. That's the word B. In between the words Intelligent Thoughts, and on Twitter at Intelligent Tho1. That's Intelligent THO and the number 1. I'm going to have an MLB recap week 4 coming out with my friend Matthew Beckham, just like last week. I believe that's going to be tomorrow, and probably an NFL draft preview, even if I have to do that shit myself. There's a pretty good chance that comes tomorrow, maybe later today. Who knows? As I said earlier, you're tuned in to the NBA Today for Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. Before we start the show, let's listen to a little bit of music. Let's start this shit. And it's almost unfair that we go in chronological order, honestly. With a night as spectacular as last night was, I feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out, but we're going to start with the first game of the evening in Toronto. This game, not the most interesting game of all time. If you guys listened to me yesterday on the podcast, I'm not going to lie, you guys got free money. I gave you a 3-team parlay. You guys got free money. So did I, technically. But this game, not the best game. Pretty much a blowout from the start. The Raptors were up by 16 points after the first quarter. Up by 20 points at halftime. Up by 29 after 3 quarters. Kawhi Leonard has 27 points. Pascal Siakam adds 24 points. And the Toronto Raptors used another ridiculous defensive effort, and they beat the Orlando Magic 115-96 to win their first-round playoff series 4-1. As I said, up by 29 points after the third quarter, they put it in cruise control, let the backups play a little bit. They end up winning by 19 points there at home. Kawhi Leonard, 27 points, 7 rebounds. That comes on just 8 for 11 shooting, just 11 shots for 27 points, including 5 for 5 from beyond the arc. A fantastic defensive game for Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi has really shown out in the playoffs this year. Other than Dame Lillard, I would say he's probably been the most impressive player in the playoffs, in my opinion, so far. Even in the game where they lost, I think he had like 27 points on a pretty good shooting night. And then just not quite as good defensively. And then that was Kyle Lowry's 0-point game in that one there. They lost by 3. Kawhi Leonard looking like a fucking animal, though, moving into the second round. Toronto looks really, really good after stumbling in that first game. It's going to be a tough, tough team to match up with. Either way, they're so long. Kawhi, Siakam, Gasol, they can shoot so well. Every one of their starters made a three. Two of them made two. Well, four of them made more than two. So, I mean, that's pretty sweet there. This team is going to be really tough to match up with. We'll talk about that here in the upcoming days, I suppose, here. Pascal Siakam goes 8 for 16 from the field, 3 for 5 from the three-point arc. He finishes with 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. Just 2 fouls for him, just 1 foul for Kawhi Leonard in this game. Able to really control the game a lot better by keeping them out of foul trouble. For the others, on the other side, I think Vucevic had 3 fouls in the first quarter. Aaron Gordon had 2 or 3 fouls in the first quarter. Really helped lead to that blowout and really, really put it kind of out of hand really early, first or second quarter, really. I mean, you could kind of tell the game was over. I believe Orlando cut it to like 11 in the second quarter at one point, and then they just kind of shut down. I don't think they ever got it under, I think, 20 points really again, after halftime. Kyle Lowry finishes with 14 points and 9 assists, 2 for 4 from downtown, 6 for 10 overall. Nice to see him have a positive impact in a game here after that 0-point performance from Game 1. He's played 4 pretty good games, nothing spectacular except for that Game 2, but pretty good nonetheless. Marc Gasol continues to play well as the starting center, 9 points for him, 9 rebounds, 2 for 5 from the field, 1 for 3 from downtown. Norman Powell gives you 11 and 4 rebounds off of the bench in 18 minutes, and Serge Ibaka playing the backup center role. He gives you 10 points and 4 rebounds in 19 minutes off the bench. For the Magic, they're led in scoring by DJ Augustine, 4 for 9 overall, 4 for 8 from downtown. He finishes with 15 points and 4 assists. Their second leading scorer was a combination of 2 dudes off the bench. Terrence Ross, ex-Raptor, finishes with 12 points on 2 for 6 from downtown. And Wes Iwundu finishes with 12 points in 12 minutes on 3 for 5 shooting, mainly in garbage time there in the fourth quarter. Vucevic, rough game for him. He gets just 6 points, 7 rebounds in 17 minutes, 3 for 10 shooting. Tough time dealing with the defensive prowess of the Toronto Raptors in this one. Marc Gasol, not really known for being a great defender. He was able to bottle him up a little bit. Siakam coming from the weak side, obviously a big help as well. Fournier finishes with 10, only goes 1 for 6 from 3 land though. Aaron Gordon finishes with 11 and 7 rebounds. That's on 4 for 13 shooting though, and 0 for 4 from downtown. As I said earlier, Jonathan Isaac rounds out the starting lineup, 3 points on 7 shots in 28 minutes. Tough performance here for Orlando. Good news is, moving forward, it looks like they'll probably end up getting Markelle Fultz to play a game. He has not played a single minute since being traded from the 76ers earlier in the year, I think back in February or something like that. And their high first-round pick from last year, Mo Bamba, the 7'3" center, who has been out of action most of the season, or at least most of the second half of the season. They'll be looking to get him back for next year as well, so it'll be interesting to see how they mesh together. Obviously, this was a pretty good year. They got up to the 7th seed in the playoffs, not expected to get anywhere near the playoffs at the beginning of the year. So really, overall, a pretty good season for the Orlando Magic, and really, if you count the one win on the road in Toronto in the playoffs, you got to think that that's actually a positive, a net positive overall, as bad as it feels right now, and as bad as you've been blown out for the past few games. It's got to feel like a net positive overall, I would imagine. And then for the Toronto Raptors, they look really, really good. If Kyle Lowry can continue to play well, I think that they'll probably be favored in round 2 in the matchup of the Big Four out east. Alrighty, to the second game of last night we go. This one in Philadelphia, another blowout, unfortunately, where the 76ers are up by 17 points after the first quarter, up by 29 at halftime, and they win the game 122-100 over the Brooklyn Nets at home here in Game 5, and they also win the series 4-1. Joel Embiid dominates for the most part. He finishes with 23 points and 13 rebounds in 20 minutes. 9 for 18 from the field. He even sinks a couple of threes. Looked completely unstoppable. Man, having him healthy moving forward is going to be the biggest thing for the Philadelphia 76ers. Them getting out of the first round here in 5 games is going to be huge. The fact they don't have to play 6 or 7 games, it's going to give them a little bit of rest. Like I said yesterday, I actually wouldn't have played him in this game. I think they probably still would have won. Luckily, he only played 20 minutes, though, so kind of a restricted minutes thing there. They were up by so many points in the first quarter or the second quarter that he really was not much of a factor after halftime. Huge win for the 76ers, though, at home. Obviously gets them into the second round of the playoffs, where they'll be matching up with the Toronto Raptors. And like I just said, I actually think that the Raptors are going to be favored in this one. We'll see, though. Ben Simmons finishes with 13 points, 6 assists, 5 boards. 6 for 10 shooting in 27 minutes. Tobias Harris finishes with 12 points and 8 rebounds. 2 for 4 from downtown for him in 27 minutes. J.J. Redick makes 3 threes, finishes with 11. Jimmy Butler just 9 points in 27 minutes, but 5 assists and 5 rebounds, and played some great defense to help him out there. Every player on the team played at least 6 minutes. Greg Monroe with 6 minutes, but he put up 5 points in there. Every player except for one on the team, and that was Mike Scott, scored at least 5 points. Boban had 7. Cork Motts had 7. Jonathan Simmons with 10. Ennis with 11. Bolden chips in with 6. So a big game overall for just about everybody for the Brooklyn Nets here in the victory. For the 76ers in the victory, my bad. For the Nets, they're led in scoring by Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, 21 points off the bench in 15 minutes. He goes 9 for 13 from the field. Obviously, most of that in time that ended up being non-valuable or not important overall. Caris LeVert finishes with 18 points as the starting shooting guard, 6 for 12 from the field, 1 for 3 from beyond the arc. D'Angelo Russell with a terrible game, 3 for 16 from the field, 1 for 6 from downtown. He finishes with just 8 points and 3 assists. Terrible game for D'Angelo Russell, a guy who's shown so much promise, probably going to be second place in the Most Improved Player of the Year award this season in the NBA. Couldn't really imagine much worse of a performance there in a closeout game, especially on the road for a young team, young player. Not entirely surprising. He doesn't shoot at a high percentage at all, really at any point. That's just kind of not his game. But, man, having half as many points as you've taken shots is, let's just say, very rare. I don't even remember the last time I actually saw that on a box score. So that is, having less is one thing, Russell Westbrook, but having half as many is some next level shit there. Jared Dudley, instigator. He finishes in 18 minutes with 0 points, 0 for 3 from the field. Jared Allen, 8 points, 9 rebounds in 24 minutes. Not a factor, though. Basically is dominated completely by Joel Embiid. And even Boban Marjanovic basically dominated him. Boban looked pretty much unstoppable there in the second quarter with Joel on the bench. Other than that, Karooks, he gets 14 points off the bench, makes a couple of threes in 15 minutes. And Shabazz Napier, 11 points, 10 assists, by far the most assists on the team there. And that's coming off the bench in just 16 minutes, albeit most of that later in the fourth quarter. Like I said, both the Raptors and the 76ers win the series in 5 games on the same night. They'll both have the same amount of rest. That'll probably be more important for Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers, even though Toronto has had a minutes restriction type of a season for the whole season for Kawhi Leonard. So I'm sure that'll be helpful as far as that's concerned also. But really, it's going to be a big boost for Joel Embiid. The game 1 of that second round series is not yet still to be determined here. So I'm not entirely sure when they're going to start that off. But it should be coming up, I would guess, at the beginning of next week or so. And the first game I do know will take place in Toronto. Alrighty, let's go to Denver, Mile High, where the Denver Nuggets ball out. Play great, really good first half overall, and then the Nuggets end up taken away late in the game. Jamal Murray scores 23 points and led one of 6 Nuggets that are in double figures, and Denver ended up routing the San Antonio Spurs 108